The assurance that legal abortion would be safe abortion led a 21-year-old Colorado woman to take a journey ultimately to her death. Today is November 14th. This is Christina with the Sisyphean Journal. The promise that legal abortion was safe abortion led a 21-year-old Colorado woman to make a journey that ended in her death as well as the death of her baby. This is Christina with the Sisyphean Journal, and today is November 14th. So on November 14th of 1972, 21-year-old Twila died in a California hospital. She had traveled from her home in Colorado to have a safe legal abortion in California, where abortion had been legalized as long as abortions were performed in hospitals. So she had a saline injection done on November 13th. Now, saline abortions, they were invented in the Soviet Union in the 1930s. They became very popular in Japan after World War II, but they turned out to be very dangerous because what happens, the doctor would use one of those huge amniocentesis needles to pull out as much amniotic fluid as he could and replace it with a very, very strong sterile salt solution. And this salt solution, the baby would swallow it, the baby would breathe it in, it would be on the baby's delicate skin, and just cause massive, massive hemorrhage, internal organ damage, brain damage, and the baby would die. This was not a pleasant death for the baby. And from what I've seen from post-abortion testimony from women who have regretted their saline abortions, they typically weren't told what this was going to be like. I don't think they realized they'd be feeling their baby's death throes. Now, the other problem with saline abortions, other than the fact that they were emotionally nightmarish for the mothers, was that they were very dangerous for the mothers. The salt solution was very strong. If it got injected into the woman's bloodstream, it could kill her very quickly, just as it killed her baby. And even if it wasn't accidentally injected into the bloodstream, enough of it could cross the placental barrier and get into her bloodstream and cause possibly life-altering complications, including brain damage. Now, there were a lot of deaths and a lot of complications and so many problems in Japan after World War II that Japanese doctors totally abandoned the saline abortion method, but they kind of kept it on the down low. They weren't going to talk about it. But when they saw that as abortion was being legalized in the Western world, Western doctors were taking up this method because it was very easy for them. Pull out some fluid, put in some fluid, wash your hands of the situation. Now, in New York, some of the doctors just send the woman home and let her deal with it herself. In California, of course, they were required to stay in hospitals. But it wasn't the doctor's problem. He would leave. The mother had to go through this ordeal and give birth to her dead, scalded-looking baby. And the nurses would have to deal with these women who were going through this emotional ordeal, going through all the pain of labor and delivery, and pushing out the usually dead candy apple baby, as the nurses dubbed them, because the saline would just eat away at their skin so much that these babies, usually dead, would come out this bright candy apple red. These were horrific. And the last saline abortion death I've seen was, I believe, in 1998. It very gradually fell out of favor as other abortion methods were adopted. So this was something where these doctors with a lot of experience had warned Western doctors not to do it, and they were doing it anyway. But here's Twila. Abortion's legal. I'm sure it's safe. It's in a hospital. They take out amniotic fluid. They put in the saline on November 13th. Now, the next day, she expelled her dead baby and the placenta, but her blood pressure just totally tanked and she was bleeding from IV sites. This indicates that she had developed what's called disseminated intravascular coagulopathy, or DIC. And that's when the clotting factors in the blood get all out of whack. And DIC can go in two different directions. One is too much clotting, the other is no clotting. And when they start bleeding from their IV sites, this is no clotting, and it's very, very difficult to treat. Now, the hospital that performed the abortion gave her oxygen and 3 units of blood. This wasn't helping, so they transferred her to a fully equipped hospital. On arrival, she was comatose and still bleeding heavily. Now, doctors removed some retained pregnancy tissue, and they sutured uterine ruptures. And you know what rupture means? Burst open. This could not have been a pleasant experience for Twila, to say the least, to have her uterus burst open and spill her blood out into her abdominal cavity. They were able to suture the uterine injuries, but they couldn't stop the hemorrhaging, and Twila died of cerebral hemorrhage, probably because through that uterine rupture, the saline got into her bloodstream and caused her brain to bleed. So, despite the fact that her doctor chose an antiquated, dangerous abortion method, nobody was prosecuted because, hey, it's legal. You kill a patient, no big deal, right? Now, there's one little bit of statistical legerdemain that was very popular at the time, which was to try to get other states to legalize abortion and to push for nationwide legalization of abortion on demand. One of the things that the abortion lobby did was say, oh, look at this study. Hospitalizations for abortion complications plummeted after abortion was legalized. Clearly, it improved safety. Well, if you're doing the abortion in the hospital, she's not going to get admitted for the complication because she's already there. The only hospital admissions would be if she went home and had to come back because the complications were delayed. Now, I don't know in Twila's case whether the transfer from one hospital to another got counted as an admission and she got tallied up as a sign that all was not rainbows and unicorns. Hard to say. Like I said, fortunately, saline abortions did eventually fall out of favor. But you ask me, way not soon enough.